Austin Andrews here with your beacon. Today we're taking a look at FEMA refusing service to Trump supporters. Now, as hurricanes ripped through parts of the southeastern United States in the fall, President-elect Trump made the comment that men and women were being supported differently depending on who they most likely supported for president in the then ongoing race. On October the 4th, the New York Times published an article titled, quote, Trump's fake claims about the federal response to Hurricane Helene, end quote, where they outlined that the president was wrong to suggest that FEMA could be biased in its dispersion of care. A month later, the New York Times published a new article titled, quote, FEMA fires employee for telling Milton relief workers to skip houses with Trump signs, end quote. When Hurricane Helene hit North Carolina and East Tennessee, the perception in the mainstream media was that no one in FEMA or any other federal agency would ever politicize the aid of human beings. Never mind that it took FEMA weeks to enter areas, that law enforcement was slow to start rescues, and that FEMA and law enforcement tried to prevent private individuals from mounting helicopter rescues on their own. Anyone watching the issue could feel the separation of our government and the people it was sworn to serve, and neighbors were seen as more reliable aid and support than the government was. This may not have included the kind of proof that the New York Times wanted of bias, but still to this day, the needs of North Carolina and East Tennessee are being met more by neighbors and friends than by the government. Now, a report has hit, broken first by Daily Wire's Leif LeMahieu, that describes an incredulous situation. A FEMA supervisor in Florida, after Hurricane Milton, told workers to, quote, avoid homes advertising Trump, end quote, as they canvassed Lake Placid, Florida, identifying residents qualifying for federal aid. The Daily Wire uncovered this through whistleblowers' accounts and the provision of communications from Supervisor Marnie Washington. Government employees have confirmed to Daily Wire that at least 20 homes were affected by this single supervisor's edict, and that these homes were identified as likely meeting the federal criteria for aid, and that instead of knocking on the door and connecting these homes to aid, the homes were skipped. When these homes were skipped in the canvassing, the federal employees noted in the federal system they skipped due to reasons such as, quote, Trump sign, no entry per leadership, end quote. Marnie Washington had given these orders both verbally and in written form, as written proof was provided to the Daily Wire in the form of screenshots. One screenshot included a best practices list, seemingly distributed through a messaging app being used by the federal employees, that was sent to Crew 33 that included 13 participants. The message states, quote, implement best practices, end quote, and then begins to list off guidelines like no one goes anywhere alone, practice de-escalation, communicate and follow the rules, bring a towel in the field, frequent breaks and drink water. But the second listing in the guidelines states, quote, avoid homes advertising Trump, end quote. As the New York Times headline stated earlier in this report, Marnie Washington is believed to have been fired from FEMA at this time. Now, congressional representatives from both the House and Senate have sent letters to the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees FEMA, as well as to the FEMA administrator, seeking answers on how this could have ever been allowed, if this is truly an isolated incident, and what the process of correcting an issue like this should be. In the quick response to the reporting by Daily Wire, originally breaking on November 8th, a new question has also surfaced for the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA. What did they know and when? It seems that internal investigations may have been occurring before the media got wind of the incident, but action was only decisively taken after the media storm began. If this can be confirmed, likely through congressional investigation, that may also indicate a problem in FEMA about how they handle these kinds of extreme cases of bias. Governor Ron DeSantis is also stepping into the fray as he has ordered a Floridian investigation into the events as it did take place in his jurisdiction, making sure that no other homes were missed and that all responsible parties are found. One firing is a good sign, but the question remains if this was a lone supervisor who made a blatant call, or if this is an indicator of a culture within FEMA under the Biden and Harris administration. Other responses to this incident have led to conversations about the structure of FEMA itself and the Department of Homeland Security, and whether FEMA should be split out as an independent agency that reports directly to the White House. Congressman Byron Daniels, a Florida representative, suggested this in the midst of President-elect Trump's hiring frenzy for his new government and cabinet. Now, issues with splitting out FEMA and making it an independent agency could be the cost of administration, which is a cost that Donald Trump looks to be trying to cut in the executive branch generally, not expand. This cutting is the focus of Elon Musk's involvement in the government as they launch the government efficiency efforts alongside individuals like Vivek Ramaswamy and even potentially Ron Paul, the former senator. Regardless of any of those changes, a sweep of affected areas in Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, East Tennessee, and other hurricane-affected areas needs to be conducted now to be sure that these 20 homes in Lake Placid were the only homes skipped for political reasons or non-political reasons, that people are getting the aid that they really need. For now, I'm Austin Andrews, and I'll see you on the next report.